Hello, I'm Patrick Markfort.
And I'm Dave Ferraro, and this is the Comics and More podcast. And this week we're going to do our last podcast that is going to be focused on the Marvel Now books. So we have 3 titles we're going to talk about this week. FF, which came out last week, and this week's Avengers and Thunderbolts.
Right. So first we'll talk about Avengers #1 by Jonathan Hickman and Jerome Opeña. So this is definitely one of the major releases of the Marvel Now event. And it's one that I was really looking forward to reading because I've become a big fan of Jonathan Hickman's work on Fantastic Four and FF. So now he is moving over into the Avengers universe. And this is the first of 2 Avengers books that he'll be doing for Marvel Now. He's also going to be writing New Avengers, which I think is coming out really soon, probably like next week or a couple weeks.
Probably a couple of weeks.
Yeah, something like that. So this is the first of the Avengers books that Hickman will be doing. Jerome Opeña is a terrific artist, has kind of a European kind of style to his artwork, and he used to draw Uncanny X-Force with Rick Remender, which, of course, I love a lot. So we've talked about that many times on this podcast. So, yeah, high expectations for this book. And essentially, the premise of all 3 of these books, I just kind of realized while I was flipping through them to remind myself what they're about, is basically the same. These books are basically all 3 about the same thing, and they're about recruiting and assembling characters for these new teams. So it'll be, we can really do a compare and contrast here, because they're all basically trying to do the same thing, so we'll see which one, how they approach it and which one does it the best. So there is a bit of repetition in these relaunches, especially with the team books. So yeah, essentially the way they do it in Avengers #1 is essentially if you've read the classic giant size X-Men #1, which introduced the new X-Men team back in the 1970s with Wolverine and Storm and all that. They basically follow that model. So the classic Avengers get into a situation that they cannot get out of and are essentially captured and defeated by these enemies. And Captain America, it's up to Captain America to recruit a new team of Avengers to essentially rescue them. That's basically the story. So the core team that they start out with is coincidentally exactly the characters that appear in the major motion picture Marvel's The Avengers. Right? So it's Captain America, Thor, Hulk, Iron Man, plus Black Widow, and Hawkeye. So that is the team as it exists at the beginning of this book. But as we go on, we find out that Captain America and Iron Man have been kind of secretly recruiting all of these reserve Avengers around the world. Some characters who've never been Avengers before, and not all of whom are revealed yet. Eventually there is going to be 24 characters on this team. So we see some of them come into the story at the end of this issue. So essentially what happens is you've got this weird group of villains, which I think these are new characters. Am I right?
I think so.
Yeah, I didn't know these characters. I think Ex Nihilo was the name of one of them.
And Abyss, I think.
Ex Nihilo and Abyss. Yeah, so you've got this strange group of supervillains on Mars, and they're terraforming Mars, and they're also they've fired a missile that I think is going to terraform part of Earth, and of course will wipe out the life that is there, kind of like the Genesis device from Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. So the Avengers go to Mars to stop these guys. Most of them are captured. Captain America recruits these other members of the team. So that's essentially the issue. And the other new members, I'm not sure I know all of these characters. And I'm pretty sure at least one of these characters, I was like, oh, should we spoil it? But I think they've revealed all of these characters. I don't think they've revealed the whole lineup yet. So this is actually, I mean, spoiler alert, this is the last page. I mean, whatever. If you're interested in Marvel now, you've read this.
Yeah, I don't know a lot of the characters. I mean, I know a lot of them, but there are a few I don't know, actually.
I think at least one of these characters is a new character. So let's break it down here. So these are the characters that have been added in so far, with more to come to the initial team. So we've got Hyperion, who is this character?
I don't know.
I think this character has appeared before. I want to say like Smasher.
Okay.
Or something like that. She's involved with the Imperial Guard, I think.
Oh, okay. Sure.
Does that ring a bell? Captain Universe.
Mm-hmm.
Spider-Woman. Spider-Man. Wolverine. Captain Marvel. Cannonball.
Mm-hmm.
Never been an Avenger before. Falcon.
Mm-hmm.
Is it Sunspot?
Sunspot. Mm-hmm.
Sunfire.
Oh, okay.
I believe that's Sunfire.
Yeah,
and then this character
and
with the I said Wolverine.
Oh.
This character with the dreadlocks, I don't think has appeared before.
Okay.
So I think that's a new character, as far as I know.
Mm-hmm.
So those are some of the new characters that Hickman is bringing into the event.
And they have this cool little like thing at the very beginning. It's just like the middle parts are like filled in, and then they kind of like fill these outer rings in as more people are recruited. I think that's kind of a cool little visual device.
Yeah, Hickman's is, I said this before about his books. He's kind of a cool design guy. He started out as an artist as well as a writer. He's really just exclusively a writer now, but his books always have kind of a neat kind of design sensibility. So he's brought some of that over from FF into this book. So he comes up with this cool little graphic where the symbols for each character is filled in as those characters are revealed. And again, eventually there'll be 24 characters. So so that was kind of what this issue is about. I really enjoyed it. I don't want to overpraise it because as much as I liked it, I mean, Jerome Peña's art looks phenomenal here as always. Dean White, again, mentioned him many times on this podcast, does the coloring here. So this is an A-list caliber creative team taking over this book. And so I really enjoyed reading it. It had a real kind of freshness to it. But I don't want to overpraise it because I think like a lot of that is just me like knowing that this book is going to be awesome. And really all you get with this issue is an assembling of heroes, which we've seen before and we see in other books this week. So I don't want to like, make it to be more than what it is, but it is for what it is, which is a simple story. It is elegantly handled, and I think it is the best of the books that we're looking at this week. So yeah, I mean, I love I can't imagine this book is not going to be just terrific.
Yeah, and he hints at things at the very beginning, like opening scenes of things that are going to happen.
Yeah,
and makes it seem very epic, like that opening sequence.
As little as there is here, and as simple of a story as this is that we've seen many times in superhero books and continue to see, it is elegantly done. So yeah, the book is actually narrated by an unknown narrator who is speaking about this assembly of the new Avengers as though it's something that's already happened. And it's happened, not only has that happened, but there have been these catastrophic events that have taken place. So that is in our future, and we don't know exactly who it is that's narrating this, but it's one of the new Avengers. And I thought it was kind of cool that the last line was not "we are Avengers," but "we were Avengers." So giving the whole book kind of has an elegiac tone, as though we're starting to build something now, but we know that something dark is coming. And I'm sure that new Avengers, which we get a hint of here in just one panel, will play into that. And I read Hickman in an interview. He like said that New Avengers is the most important book in the Marvel Universe. Like, he flat out said that. So big events are on the horizon, but I think they're off to a great start here. What did you think of this book?
Yep, I think so too. I think it was easily the strongest offering this week. And it fits right up there with the other strongest debuts for Marvel now. So I'm very happy with this.
Did you like that they started with the core team from the movies? Because Bendis during his run, he had a pretty large team too, not as large as what. And
you haven't been reading like New Avengers.
No, I haven't kept up at all with.
But it really needed a refresh. I feel like it got stale over the years, and it was just like at the end, it was just like, okay, it's really time to like end this reign.
And I feel like this is a good way to do it. I like that too. I mean, the team that they came up with for the movies is a good team. They're characters that go well together. And it's a smart way. It's just a smart way to go into it, so that Bendis has done so much with the Avengers over his, I think, 8+ year run. That it's really, admirable that they were able to make a #1 issue that actually does read like a #1 issue.
Yeah.
So if you just saw the Avengers movie and want to read like an Avengers comic book, this would be a terrific comic book to read. Like, here's the Avengers but here's them expanding that concept and more characters. You get more in the comic book than what you get with the movie, which is really cool. So I really like this book a lot.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, it's great.
All right, so let's move on to the next comic book that we are going to be reviewing. Thunderbolts #1. And Thunderbolts has been relaunched a few times recently.
And let's just give it up for Thunderbolts.
Yeah.
The concept right away. How many superheroes from that were created in the 90s still have legs? Some of Rob Liefeld's characters, but beyond that, Kurt Busiek and Merc Bagley really created a concept with surprising legs in the Thunderbolts.
And it was a really cool concept originally.
Yeah, it was great.
That was a classic first issue.
It was one of the best. Yeah, I don't think you could do it now today.
Yeah, and they've refreshed it a few times to really good results, I feel like, too.
And one bad result. Remember they did the Fight Club style at one point in the early 2000s?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was really short-lived. But mostly Thunderbolts is cool. Anyway, go on, sorry.
Yeah, and I really liked, I forget who did it, but the dark period during Civil War, I think, was a really high point.
Yeah,
it was very dark, and when the Thunderbolts appeared in the other books, they were scary. Superheroes were afraid of the Thunderbolts. They were just these brutal killers that were that were sent after people as a last result.
Yeah. So
it was just a really cool.
Yeah. The original concept was villains masquerading as heroes.
Yep, exactly.
And they've changed and altered that concept. But it seems like Thunderbolts is almost always about either anti-heroes or villains pretending to be heroes, or in this case, kind of vigilante.
Yep, this case is definitely vigilante, anti-hero type.
Yeah, they kind of are on that line between hero and villain.
So in this comic book, we have the characters of Deadpool, Punisher, Venom, Elektra, Red Hulk, and there's another girl that was in it with pink hair that I don't know who she is.
Yeah, I didn't know that
character. You don't know who that
either.
is either? Okay.
There's another character.
So I'm sure we will be seeing more from her later. But basically in this one, it's another recruiting issue. General Ross, who is the Red Hulk, is recruiting the members of this kind of what has traditionally been an assassination type of team. It looks kind of X-Force, Uncanny X-Force.
Yeah, it's like X-Force. Basically,
these are the characters who are going to do what other heroes can't do, really.
Kill. These are the heroes that are willing to kill.
Yep.
Kind of all in one book.
Yep, exactly. I'm not really too familiar with Venom, the new Venom, but I'm assuming he's along those lines too. But the other ones definitely are. And basically, the framework is that General Ross has the Punisher tied up, and there's some some mobsters and stuff coming to the scene, giving him kind of a time to think over his deal while with a timeline. He has to decide if he wants to join this group in a certain period of time, while he's kind of thinking back to his recruiting of people like Elektra and Deadpool and Venom. I thought it was a little silly, some of the scenes, a little over the top, him just sitting at a cafe table with his tea while watching Deadpool take on Killer Clowns and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Killer Mimes,
Well, but Deadpool always is over the top.
I know that one is over the top.
But I think this book is going to be over.
But even a Elektra scene too, it's the most brutal things you can think of.
Yes.
I don't know. It
read like a Marvel Max book.
Yeah.
They would have had to publish this through Max a few years ago.
Yeah.
It was just very
lots of blood and violence in
this.
Bloody. Ending with spoiler, General Ross and Punisher pretty much just killing all these mobsters that came after him.
Yeah. Punisher agrees to be part of a team, which is, I think, a new thing for the Punisher.
Yeah. Well, he's been on... Wasn't he part of the new Fantastic Four or something at one point?
Oh, that's right, yeah.
So... But yeah,
the old new Fantastic Four as opposed to the new Fantastic Four we'll be discussing in a moment.
Yep. So, Danielle Way, Steve Dillon does the art on this competently, but nothing extraordinary, I don't think. It was just it was very clear and concise. And the structure was, decent as an assembly book, but there wasn't really a lot here I felt to really make me want to read more of it. I mean, I kind of like the idea behind it, but this first issue, as Ross is like getting these like people together, it's just like, I don't know, it was just like a little flat. Like it was very surface, it felt like. Even though there was like a lot of blood and violence and stuff like that, it was just
There's
very...
definitely a lot of blood and violence, but I didn't think there was too much else.
Yeah, that's...
Yeah, I kind of agree with you for the most part. The first thing I noted about the book, or the first thing that kind of grabbed my attention, was Steve Dillon's artwork. Not necessarily because it was particularly striking or an unusual style for him or anything, but just because I don't think I had realized that Steve Dillon was the artist on this book. I probably had read that somewhere, but it's just kind of like had went by me. And you know, it's interesting how Marvel promotes these things. I mean, they have a different artist doing the cover in a completely different style, and that art is what I've seen in a lot of the ads and stuff. So it was it kind of like took me aback to open up the book, and right away it's like, oh, okay, Steve Dillon's drawing this, which right away you have certain associations with that artist. You know, he worked on the Punisher Max character, and before that he did Preacher. Has done less with like mainstream superheroes, but a lot with like violent Vertigo Marvel Max style material. So right away I felt like that's making a statement about what kind of a book this is going to be, opening it up. So, but yeah, I mean, you're right, he's fine here. He does a competent job. I mean, you know, if you have like Steve Dillon in the past, you will continue to like him here. I haven't read anything before by Daniel Way. But yeah, I kind of agree with you. It was, you know, I'm certainly not put off by violence at all. I mean, some of my favorite comics, my absolute favorites, are also incredibly violent, like Savage Dragon and Uncanny X-Force are just incredibly violent books. But the violence in those books is in the context of action and adventure. This book really was just violent for the sake of being really violent in scene after scene. And each of these, you know, characters, they didn't construct, you know, a particularly interesting story, I didn't think. There was no real action. You know, it really was just, look at Venom kill a bunch of guys, look at Elektra stab a couple of guys in the head, look at, you know what I mean? It's just like flat, like you said. And to have such a violent book read so flat like that tonally, it was a bit off-putting. You know, it was a bit distasteful, I thought. So, I mean, it's kind of weird to say that because, I mean, you know, it's the Punisher, and, you know, I mean, that's kind of what you get. But I think with characters like these, it is important to construct exciting adventure narratives around them to give a kind of context to that violence. Otherwise, it seems like they're just kind of walking around murdering people. So unless you're really a fiend for blood and gore in your superhero comics, I don't know that there's much else to this Thunderbolts concept, at least based on this first issue. Yeah.
I'm assuming they're gonna make like certain like you know, missions that are well suited for them, you know, that will be more action oriented and stuff.
Well,
but
well, and the one thing we haven't really seen here either is we haven't seen the characters interacting with each other. Because you've got General Ross going around the world, and you see Red Hulk and Punisher kind of go out at the very end of the book, but you don't see them interact as a team, which like, I was kind of looking forward to reading this one because I tend to like books like that. I like books that have interesting collections of characters, and particularly like the more kind of oddball, offbeat characters. So that is definitely like, you know, a factor here. So maybe as they start to interact and play off of one another, it'll be a little bit more interesting. But their individual personalities and the individual scenes didn't really come through very much here. The only thing we have is like, they're willing to kill people, they're able to kill people, they do kill a lot of people, and it's hard not to contrast it with Uncanny X-Force, which is such an imaginative, well-constructed book with so much more going on than just killing people. And even when it is about killing people, they examine the effect that takes on the characters who are doing the killing. So I think comparisons are inevitable, and Thunderbolts really has a lot to live up to in that regard, which is not really met by just this first issue, but you know, I mean, we'll see how it goes. It wouldn't surprise me if this book turns into something, but like you, I'm probably not interested enough myself to follow forward unless I hear that, you know, really cool things are happening.
Yeah. And like hundreds of mobsters just standing outside of a building, like waiting for more mobsters to show up and then going. I don't know. It's just like a little weakly like thought out too. I thought too.
Yeah, you're not. I mean, you're not really sure like how seriously you're supposed to take it.
It's just very tonally strange.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. It was an odd tone, but I wasn't quite sure on what level we were supposed to.
And maybe they don't really know what tone they're going for.
Yeah, like it's supposed to be like so over the top it's ridiculous. Yeah. If so, where's the sense of fun? Yeah. You know, where's the like just kind of thrill of turning these pages and reading it? I just see a lot of blood. Yeah. Okay, so Thunderbolts wasn't as good, but one that I did like quite a bit more was FF #1, and this. Like Fantastic Four, is written by Matt Fraction with art by Mike Allred, and Laura Allred does the coloring. Really interesting artistic choice for this book. So a while back in one of the podcasts, I don't know if it was one of my podcasts or one of these, I said that if FF was going to continue as a book beyond the Jonathan Hickman era, one thing I thought it really needed to do was establish its own identity. As a book that stood on its own with its own characters who had their own adventures, related to but separate from the main Fantastic Four book. And they seem to be building towards exactly that. Yep. I say building towards because, again, this is kind of a setup recruitment issue. Yeah. And it is, at this point, directly tied into what's happening in Fantastic Four. But I think those books are kind of preparing to go their own way.
And they pretty much stated, like, what's going to happen, and we're just waiting for that to happen. Yeah. Like, the Fantastic Four are going to go into space. Right. And they are going to stay on the planet. So
essentially that's what's happening. If you, as you know, if you've read or from our review of Fantastic Four, the Fantastic Four and their children are going to go on an interdimensional adventure, which should only last for 4 minutes. But just in case something goes wrong, 4 minutes our time, just in case something goes wrong, each member of the Fantastic Four has been tasked with selecting a replacement to defend the Earth, even in those 4 minutes or in the event that they are not able to return in the way or when they want to return.
Especially since Reed hasn't told the other members of the Fantastic Four that there's something wrong with their DNA and they're basically like dying. Right. So he knows more than the rest of them that they might certainly not be back.
So this issue, again, recruiting heroes for a new team. So each member of the Fantastic Four picks their own replacement. So Reed Richards picks the Scott Lang Ant-Man, who we have not seen for a while.
Yeah, he actually just returned in the Avengers Children's Crusade.
Right. Where his daughter was killed off. So that's a major story point in this issue. So he's Reed Richards' choice. The Thing chooses She-Hulk, which is great because I love the She-Hulk era of Fantastic Four. She's been a member before, as has Medusa, who is the Invisible Woman's replacement, and the Human Torch has blown off his assignment and has not yet chosen a replacement member, but we know it will be this new character who is a young girl that he... Not a young girl, but like a young woman that he's hooked up with, who will become a new character called Miss Thing. And it looks from the cover that she's wearing like one of the Thing's old exoskeletons. So that should be kind of a cool, fun new character. So that's basically what this issue is. I really enjoyed this issue. I thought it was really good. Allred is a terrific artist. I mean, I always liked Mike Allred, and I was really impressed with his work here. It didn't come off so much like, oh, look at the quirky, like, indie artist with its weird art style doing a Marvel book, so much as it did, like, he's just really good at drawing the Fantastic Four. He's kind of like the perfect artist for the Fantastic Four. I really liked how his She-Hulk looked. He draws the main Fantastic Four quite well. They're not really going to be featured in this book, but they look good here. His Thing is perfect. It looks just like a Jack Kirby thing. So I really like that. And I really enjoyed all of that about it. Like Fantastic Four, it has a fun, light tone to it, but at the same time it deals with some serious material. So you do really get into some of the stuff with Ant-Man kind of dealing with the death of his daughter and being faced with the responsibility of taking over the Future Foundation and all of these children. Because that's part of it, too. It's not just assembling a new team of Fantastic Four to defend the Earth, but it's also, assembling a new group of people to care for and guide the children of the Future Foundation, who are all here, which I really appreciated. All of the stuff that Hickman has set up is not being retconned at all. They really kind of touched a lot of those story points in this issue. The team is assembled in this first issue, and they're ready to go. So I liked FF a lot. I like Fantastic Four, so I assumed I was going to like this one. I was actually more looking forward to this one, just with the all red art and the new team.
Yeah.
I thought it was really good. It seems like it'd be a good companion book for Fantastic Four.
I totally agree with that. And again, like we've said before, like this is a book that would not fit in like DC's New 52. You know what I mean? Like that's.
Can't see DC hiring Mike Allred to draw another book.
So I mean, this is something that Marvel does really well. Like this book and like Wolverine and the X-Men, just these like really cool, quirky books that somehow fit in the universe, but don't have that same. Static look to them that all of DC's books seem to. Not to rag on DC because I really do like DC too.
Right. Well, it's hard, it's hard not to compare and contrast the New 52 with Marvel now.
Yeah.
Props to DC. They came up with the idea to relaunch the whole line. They did the New 52 first. A lot of great books coming out from them. But I do agree with you. Like, Avengers looks completely different from FF, but they both exist in the same universe, and it kind of makes sense. And you can have that kind of visual variety and even variety in the style of stories, and have it all just kind of be in the Marvel universe, which I think is great. Yep. So
me too.
Yeah, so it's really good. So okay, cool. So we'll definitely keep reading Avengers and FF. But probably not Thunderbolts.
Yeah, sorry, Thunderbolts. Unless you get some rave reviews in the future, you're cut out of our list.
Yep. And the second issue of Uncanny Avengers is out.
Yep.
And that was really good. A lot better than the first issue. Yep. I like the first issue, but this is the one where it kind of gets rolling. Like, oh yeah, this is going to be awesome. Yeah. And the third issue of Iron Man is out, which I haven't read yet, but they're pumping those out. And there is a lot more Marvel Now stuff.
All new X-Men too.
Oh yeah, all new X-Men is phenomenal. We gave it a good review of the first issue, and probably haven't talked about it since then. A lot of these are being released very rapidly. I think Avengers is going to be a bi-monthly book. What is it, bi-monthly or bi-weekly?
Bi-weekly, yeah, that's what it is.
Is that what it's called, bi-weekly?
Yep.
Yeah, I always got that confused. So a lot of these books are coming out very rapidly, which is cool for me as long as they can maintain the art. If they don't have to get into like a fill-in situation, get a lot of fill-in artists. So anyway.
Yeah, and also with All New X-Men, I just want to mention too is that I really like that it's like 3 different teams.
Did you read number 3?
Yep. So like we started out with the first issue is pretty much the present team with like the present Wolverine and Beast.
Yep. The Jean Grey School.
Yep. And then you have the original team, which is kind of going off on their own to figure out what's going on.
Yep.
And then you have the villainous team led by Cyclops with Emma Frost and Magneto and Magic,
who are restarting the Xavier School in the former headquarters of Weapon X.
Yes.
Yeah. It's really good.
The third issue was actually focusing on them, which I thought was really cool.
And those guys will probably move over into Uncanny X-Men a little bit when that book launches. Yeah. That is probably, I love Remender and I love Hickman, so I'm really excited to just dig into long runs on their Avengers books. But so far, issue to issue, All New X-Men has been really good.
It has been.
I think one thing that I like so much about it is that you don't know where they're going with it. You don't know what you're going to get issue to issue. Like the new issue, which focused almost exclusively on Cyclops' team. You didn't necessarily, or I didn't necessarily know that they were even going to be a big part of the book. You know what I mean? So it's just like issue to issue, you just never know what you're going to get. So that has been really terrific. So if you're more of a DC fan and you're just kind of curious about Marvel Now a little bit, I would definitely recommend All New X-Men. It's just terrific. And the art by Stuart Immonen continues to impress. I hope they never do fill-ins on that book. I know they're going to. I'm just so I have so much anxiety about these fill-in issues, but it's the reality of how books are put out. But I just think when you get a great artist like that, you got to go with it. So yeah, All New X-Men. I'm glad you mentioned that one. Just a really terrific book. I love it. It goes to the top of my pile all the time when it comes up. So, okay, Marvel Now.
Marvel Now.
So we'll talk about more Marvel books as they come out. We just won't have a whole episode devoted just to Marvel now.
Yep.
Because we did 4 for DC, so we did 4 for Marvel. So now it'll just be kind of incorporated.
Yep, and in the future, we'll have like those big graphic novel shows like we used to, but we will also do like just like a general like catch up on like what we're reading or some things we want to talk about in comics. So we'll probably touch on even like these books like at some point in the future, as well as other Marvel, other DC, etc.
Yep. So we're trying to figure out a way to kind of get these podcasts out more regularly while still reading a variety of material, and also reading material that we want to read, not just that we feel compelled to read for the podcast. So so for you guys, that should just mean more episodes, more frequently, kind of like Marvel putting out more comics on a more regular basis, but there won't be any fill-ins. It won't be like someone else is here next week. Maybe we should do that sometime.
Oh, that'd be interesting.
Yeah. But anyway, okay, so that's the end of the rambling end of this episode.
Well, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you in a couple weeks.
All right. Thanks for watching. Bye now.